In the Ethereum update today, are we about to see a short-term rally for the Ethereum and Bitcoin prices? Everything you need to know in order to keep yourself calm and making the very best decisions for your money within crypto at this time are going to be in this video, guys. So make sure you smash that like button, hit subscribe, and let's get on with it. So this is my old friend, the Wall Street cheat sheet, which I bring up on this channel all the time because I want you to know that there's a bigger thing going on behind the scenes of everything you've been hearing. Yes, we've had terrible news recently, and potentially we may see more terrible news. And the reason we get terrible news at the bottom of markets is because there's a lot of panic and fear, but the real reason is because someone needs you to sell them their crypto nice and cheap. If we look into the Wall Street cheat sheet, we have all of the emotions that happen at each end of the cycle. If you were buying up here in the euphoria phase, which many people were, and you're now sat down in anger, maybe into depression levels, then I'm going to show you something very key indeed. What I did, guys, is I took the Wall Street cheat sheet and put it over the top of a trading chart. Now, obviously, I get it. It doesn't line up exactly. I understand that. But we obviously have some things to look at here. We did have a euphoria phase. We came down and then we did have this kind of pushback up, which could well have been the sort of complacency phase. And then we kind of slid down towards the bottom. But notice that in terms of the Wall Street cheat sheet, it does drop a little bit further, but not a huge amount further than we have done before. And when we're seeing this bottom area coming in here, maybe we are moving out of anger and slowly creeping in towards the depression phase. And depression actually comes just before we get into disbelief, hope, optimism, and then, and then the rest is there to be seen, guys. So before we dive across and look at Ethereum, it's key to know what's happening in Bitcoin, because Bitcoin obviously moves the market. If you've been in crypto for 5 minutes, you now understand that Bitcoin will jump or fall, and everyone else says how high, right? So we can see something very interesting indeed. This area that I've drawn through here, guys, you can see is an extremely important area. Previous lines of resistance turn into support. And yes, we have got further ones down here, and if it happens, we'll get into that later on. But I often talk to you about the importance of this little area of consolidation before this aggressive push. Now, why I'm looking at that as an order block is because we have shown interesting interaction in this area. We did come down into it, and then we did sort of spike down to the bottom of it. But right now, Bitcoin is holding that key level at just under $16,000. This is a very key area for Bitcoin. And if I jump into a 15-minute chart for Bitcoin, while we have a bottom coming in here, we are putting in an ascending triangle, which yes, has a resistance line here around $17,000, but is slowly putting in higher lows. Today we did have a rejection at 17 and we have pushed back down, but something very key is playing out in a very, very short-term chart. And what I want to show you is this. We had a bit of a trickle across into this area. We had some sideways movement, and then we had this zone pop up here. We ripped out of this zone from around 16,695 all the way up to pretty much 17,000 down into it, and we started to get bought up, and lo and behold, we are starting to show wicks, signs that we may well be due to push back. If we push with Bitcoin back towards $17,000, then we are more than likely, not 100%, but more than likely going to break this pattern. And if we break this pattern, it's going to send Bitcoin up from current price 10% or so, right? Which might not seem massive, but this could well have a big impact on the other altcoins. Now, if we look at Ethereum on the weekly chart, we see something very similar shaping out as well, right? Previously, again, aggressive push. We had this area before kind of the market started to push up harder, where we had a bit of consolidation. We dipped down into the zone. We're now in this buy zone again. There is a lot of buy orders that sit within these zones. Yes, it can still sell off, and if we get any more news like the FTX debacle, then you're going to see more pain coming in. But ultimately, FTX has happened for pretty much a huge amount of mismanagement, and yes, obviously it's going to have a big knock-on effect on the rest of the cryptocurrency world. But a lot of the other companies, you're also kind of relying on them being completely ill-managed as well, which, don't get me wrong, could have happened. But, it's less likely that you're going to see such poor management across every single other institution within crypto. Diving into a 15-minute chart for Ethereum, we can see similar things have gone on to what we've seen in Bitcoin. Although we have had lower highs getting put in on this descending triangle. This, to be fair, more often than not is more of a bearish pattern, but it's going to rely on Bitcoin to see whether or not we can break it. On a very small time frame, we're also forming this wedge. We broke out of it and then we came back to retest it. Potentially from here, we would expect to see a push towards this zone, which is sat at $1,229, just $20 above where it is right now. And if we take the height of this wedge and move it for a potential breakout, You can see Ethereum then will bring itself up to about $1,400, which in terms of a percentage move is 14%. So definitely not small. And does it have the ability to start to reinvigorate a bit of interest in the market? Right now, the market's definitely been moving very slowly. It's pretty unexciting, but we are starting to see decline in the US dollar, which has been causing a lot of the drama in crypto over the last year or so. And on the 15 minutes, the US dollar index, we're also seeing this sort of forming some sort of ascending wedge, right? But realistically, because we've entered into this in a downtrend, it's more likely than not that it's going to push further. And that could be a short-term signal that we're going to get a relief rally in cryptocurrency. Something else that's filling me with confidence on the US 30, which 30 top companies in America and closely linked to the stock market, is we came back down and you can see this very aggressive buy up. Now, if the stock market is doing well, US 30 does well, this tends to work like crypto, and we see the US 30 performing strongly. Crypto will also perform strongly, although crypto is way more heavily manipulated, or at least we know that it's more manipulated because there's less control. Stock market, they have to be a bit cleverer about their market manipulation. But the US 30 showing clear signs that it's starting to put in higher lows and continuing to put pressure towards the upside. Now, obviously, guys, if we see Bitcoin dropping lower than around $16,000, then we will ultimately be looking at further buy zones lower down. So, and you're probably wondering where they might be. Again, you can see potential order blocks coming in here. And this zone here is at a very interesting, coming down to around $10,000 up to around $11,500. And if we draw this across, you can see that this is a very interesting area. Previous lines of resistance turned into support. Obviously, this push up, then come back into this zone would indicate where we would likely see a further Bitcoin drop. Now, that would be a drop of 36%, okay? 36%. If Ethereum does the same, for Ethereum, we've got to look at previous highs like on this zone down here. And you could say that worst case scenario, looking down at $819 from current prices, which in terms of a risk percentage is a negative 35%. But I want to give you the bigger picture of what we're looking at right now. If you're in crypto and you're trying to make a quick quid in the day, but you don't really know much about trading and crypto, then probably stay away from it, just to be honest. I think if you're trying to get in for the short term, then do it when we're in bull markets. Don't try and do it at the bottom of bear markets, because you don't know exactly where the bottom is and you could absolutely wreck yourself. But if you've got a long-term mindset, which is pretty much the best game to have in crypto, you're looking at a potential of a 35% downside. However, I've already talked about in the past my Ethereum price prediction being sat up here at $7,390. The reason for that is I've taken these highs here, I've moved up my area of interest. I will then take a Fibonacci retracement. I take from the top to the swing low, and then lo and behold, this lines up with the 1.618 golden ratio, okay? So this is clearly an area that we could potentially be targeting, and I'm not saying this is gonna happen in the end of this year. We're talking a potential for 12 months, maybe even 24 months before you're seeing stuff like this again. But look at the potential. Downside, 35% risk, upside, 500%. So if I put in $1,000 right now and it drops 35%, then I currently have $650. If it goes back up through there and it gets to 1.618, I then have $5,000. So if you think about this as a sensible person who can afford to put a bit of money in for a year or 2 years, and if you can't, then you should probably not be putting money into crypto anyway, because it's pretty risky to be putting in money you can't afford to lose, as I always tell you. So I'm looking at 500% upside potential and a 35% downside. So if you know nothing about crypto and trading, this is obviously not financial advice. I'm just saying that it's pretty much a no-brainer that your downside risk is much smaller than your upside potential. Then you should feel more confident about buying. Unlike when you were sat up here where the upside potential, could maybe have been up towards there, where you've got an upside potential of something like 47%, but a downside potential of 73%. So to be very straightforward and very simple, when the markets are full of pain and full of fear, they're probably at the best time when you actually want to get in and buy. Emotionally, when it's a harder pain for you to part with your money and buy crypto, you're actually in a far safer position than when you're trying to buy crypto and you're all pumped and thinking you're going to be a millionaire next week. Because the markets are manipulated, someone needs to make you make a decision, and that is the big money. The big money know that you get scared when it's at the bottom of the market, and they know that you get pumped up and excited when it's at the top of the market. which makes it very easy for them to manipulate you. Another thing on the weekly chart, guys, is yes, we have this falling wedge, which we're finding support in, but we're also starting to find a bit of support here. Potentially, if we did have breaks toward the upside, we could see Ethereum rallying to around $1,500 or $1,550. Maybe a return back into this area, maybe even lower, who knows, and then something like this shaping up. This is not for people who want to day trade this. I'm talking about some simple advice on how to calm your mind when it comes to crypto. If you want to know more about what I'm seeing on a daily basis for cryptocurrency, then get my Telegram. It's linked down below. There's a free version where our community have discussions every day about what stuff they're seeing in the charts. There's also a premium version, which is $10 a month, like 2 coffees worth. And that's going to get you access to daily trading tips and tricks, as well as some of my calls, etc., as and when I see them. Absolute no-brainer. If you are not in there already, then get into those groups, guys. Remember, we're seeing smaller downside risk, in my opinion, could be wrong, against massive upside potential. So if you want to make money in crypto, play the long game, put some money in now. If it drops a bit further, buy some more. That's probably the best strategy I can give to you as an inexperienced trader. If, however, you're an experienced trader, I've got links down below for BitGet, where you can get massive bonuses as well. So head to that link. Smash that like button, hit the subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.